Hello YouTube vintage stereo collectors and restorers. So much for doing things in one take. But anyway, trying out a different camera today, a Nikon Coolpix L810, which is a little bit of an older camera, but it's got a great lens on it, and I can just tell the way it focuses in on stuff like this. But somebody had asked me recently, somebody had picked something up here, they like to do their own stuff, but they find it very hard to get parts off the board and unsoldered. And I just thought I'd show a little bit of that, how I manage that. It's really no big secret. I've got a couple of different desoldering tools. There's this kind, which is like a vacuum trigger desoldering tool. It doesn't do a bad job. I'm just going to change the transistor here. What I find, okay, is actually this Weller one, just the rubber bulb, works really well. Let's get this resistor out of here, because it's on top of the transistor. Now we can just desolder. I find I have a little bit more control. It's a little harder to get in sometimes. So what I've done, I've taken a bit of that solder out, and I found the C458 transistor underneath. It's the last one left in here. I just go on this lead a bit, get it a little bit loose. This one, get it a little bit loose. This one, get it a little bit loose, and move it over. See how I move it around? What it's actually doing is widening the hole. So the transistor's nice and loose now. These solder lands are very weak on these older boards. This is a phenolic resin board. It's not the standard, well, now standard fiberglass board. So what I'm going to do, I just gotta pause for a second, pull the old transistor out, and I'll put another one in from underneath. So there is the C458 with black leads. Now it worked okay. This is the protection circuit transistor. It may have never been turned on in the time this amp's been around, like in 50 years. But they are just prone to failure in one way or another. So I'm just cutting some leads. If you look at for my transistor with trousers video, that's what I'm doing. This actually helps. It helps you keep it above the board at a certain length, and it's also good for microphonics. So I pushed the transistor through from underneath and bent the leads over just enough so they grab on. So there's actually the transistor lead has the piece of tubing on it, and then it's bent over, so it's actually under tension. It's not going to fall out of place when you solder it or anything like that. So I'm just going to put a little dab of solder in this. Now there's a couple of caps on here left in this restoration. So I am just going to put some there, some on there. So if we look at this little printout, there's actually 47 microfarad there and 100 microfarad. Where is it? Across there. So I'm going to reach underneath. I've done quite a few of these, so I know where it is. I've got one finger on the cap. I'm going to heat up one lead and push it away like that. Yeah, there's glue on this cap. I can feel it. One lead loose there. This one lifted up. Very good. And then there's one here. So all I'm doing is just tilting it and pulling a little bit. Like that. Just wiggle it until the solder's cold so it doesn't readhere. Straighten out those leads and it should just fall right through. So I'm just going to pull those out. So 147. So what I've done is I pushed those two capacitors through, bent them over so they don't fall out. Now I'm just going to shorten the leads and push them down like that. Every lead that you snip out, okay, make sure you know where the end piece is. It's not up against a power transistor or something like that. That's a good way to finish it off. This one here. So I'm pushing the cap down so it's flush with the board, so that, you know, looks nice on the top side. And just cutting it a little shorter and laying it down. That's the only way with these to give them strength, because they will crack and that foil comes up like nothing. I'm just going to put a little solder here. Like that. You can bridge those two together. Get this wire out of here. That one. That one. There we go. So, we've got to get this resistor back in. And let's just test it before we put it back in. You see what there? We've got a brown, black, orange. So what is that, a 10K? I don't know. Something like that. It is a 10K, so it's about 10.2K, so that's fine. That hasn't drifted. That's actually, considering it's a silver band, that's fine. That one hasn't changed value at all. So, it goes on this land here, which is the emitter. So it's an emitter to base resistor. It's going to be fun to get in. I want you to be able to see this. I think we can do it. What I'm going to do is melt that a bit. It's not easy, people. Not easy. Let's try this again. Once we get one down, we're really good to go. So we got one down. We let go of it. Bring it into position here. That's just the way it was before. Maybe a little bit of a bend here. Like that. Let's get some solder on this. So with these, you almost need, because of the type of board it is, and you have these components mounted on the back, you need a little bit of a solder mount. I know it goes against probably what you're taught about soldering circuit boards, but otherwise you have problems with these. So like that, it just, yeah, that's almost a little too much. That looks a little bad. Let's fix that up. Let's go off. Here, like that. Yeah, so there we go. So basically you have the base of the protection circuit, and we talked about that feedback circuit in a previous video. It gets turned on at 0.62 volts. It actually grounds out the B plus for this board, so shuts down the preamp driver board. So just make sure it's not touching anything. No, that's just fine. A little bit of charcoal there off the barbecue. I find that Q-tips are good if you got a little bit of debris on there. A wet Q-tip is great too. Get that. There's actually, on these boards, the way they were done originally, there's so much flux left over here. There's almost a surface film of flux completely on the board. I was doing it's a Pioneer SA500, that's what it was, and it was like this too. Lots of big solder mounds and flux everywhere. And to clean it up would take you forever cleaning, and so you do the best you can. It's just the way they were built. These were built so the part of the board was wave soldered, so that was done by machine, but the actual putting in the components and soldering them down was done by a person with much smaller hands than me. Anyway, there's a little bit on getting parts out and back in on these old boards. Thanks for watching and listening.